So this gets into another question then. So one of the core use cases that when you think about, needing an orchestrator, is kind of, a lot of people think about it from the data warehousing perspective. Trino kind of doesn't necessarily, Trino connects to data warehouses. We have a Redshift connector. We have all of these different, like let's Redshift. There's a Snowflake one coming down the line, and then we also have one of my Teradata as well, and a couple other that I'm just not like spacing on right now. But you think about workflow orchestration from like Hadoop days all the way to even just before that. You're thinking generally of like a warehouse, right? A kind of like a warehouse flow where you're trying to stage multiple pieces and bring them into one location. But nowadays, that location kind of is shifting between, just putting everything into a warehouse, but the central kind of copy that people have from a cost perspective tends to be in a data lake. Does workflow orchestrators also kind of like fit in the same model that they were for our warehouses as they do for data lakes these days? I'll still pick on you, William, if you want, or if anybody else has any thoughts on that. Where do workflow orchestrators fit for data lakes?
Let me answer the question first, and others
sure.
can answer. You have other ideas. And actually, I think somehow data lake is more like more powerful data warehouse, because you have to extract data from different data sources. For example, from Workday or Salesforce or something like that. And also, you will have a lot of ETL jobs in your data lake. So, in my point of view, there will be more and more SQL or other tasks in your data lake. So, if you want to handle the whole ETL things to run in the right order, you have to build something workflow orchestration tools. And I think in data lake or in some we call it real-time data warehouse, you also need workflow orchestration. There's not only nowadays workflow orchestration tools not only support batch job, but they also support streaming job. For example, Spark streaming or Flink streaming. And from streaming, from one streaming job to the other streaming job, perhaps the one streaming job just load the data to Kafka, and the other extract data from Kafka. So they also have some dependencies, but they are not triggered by the job ends, but they also have a DAG task in order, because the data will first go to the first Flink job and then the other Flink job. So I think that's why I think we need a workflow orchestration tools.
Would you say it's actually more important in a data lake? Because essentially data lake has a lot more disaggregated technologies that kind of are interoperating on the data lake. And so because you have more variants of tasks, you end up needing actually a workflow orchestrator that can handle a much wider variety of not just SQL, right? It's not always going to be SQL. It's going to be so many different potential things that need to keep that data lake alive and breathing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so it's actually not just what we did with
technology are used, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting more complicated, right? The whole data landscape is adding more options, which gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of how you do things. There's a lot more, but so it's definitely harder these days to kind of have to know what to choose. But you like if you think about it like a Lego set, I think about it like this a lot of times.
Mhm.
the data seen back in the 80s was like a very small amount of Legos. You just had, the 4 block and then like an 8 block, and you just built
Mhm.
those on top of each other. Now we have
Mhm.
like all sorts of new shapes of
Yeah.
Legos that we have, and you have all this opportunity to build it in so many different ways. The problem is that, once you have all these things, and let's say you want to build it in all these certain ways, making things work like they're one unit is kind of the part that the workflow orchestrator is now starting to take responsibility for, and
Mhm.
trying to make it like a single stack that runs seamlessly together, essentially being the glue that gets all of these different Lego pieces together. You're the stickiness that pieces these
Mhm.
things and makes them happen and
Mhm.
work in a consistent way together, right? Is that
Yeah.
like going with what you thinking of it?
Yeah, yeah, and actually, more and more developers just develop their, I think, their jobs on Data Lake, not only
Yeah.
SQL but also Java, Python,
Yep.
Erlang, or Go or something, or Spark or something like that. So you have to handle them all in one place. So that's Orchestrator.
Got
Yeah.
it.